Rhea Ripley, one of the most commanding presences in WWE, has never been one to hold back, and her recent comments aimed at a particular segment of the wrestling fanbase are no exception. Known for her intensity both in the ring and on social media, Ripley took to Twitter to deliver a searing critique of fans who claim to support women's wrestling but spend their energy tearing down the very women they profess to champion. Her words were sharp, unapologetic, and sparked a firestorm of discussion online, particularly on a random Wednesday afternoon when her tweet caught the attention of wrestling fans scrolling through their feeds. The online world, often a breeding ground for negativity, was buzzing with reactions to her pointed message, which called out the hypocrisy of these so-called supporters and urged them to redirect their energy towards something constructive. What exactly set Ripley off? And what did she suggest fans do instead of spreading vitriol? Let's unpack her comments and the larger context of women's wrestling to understand why her words resonate so deeply and what they reveal about the state of the industry today. Ripley's tweet was a direct response to the toxic rhetoric that has long plagued women's wrestling. She quoted a string of hateful comments that are all too familiar to female wrestlers. "She's sleeping with her boss. That's why she's successful. She doesn't deserve it. She should retire. I hope she gets injured." These are the kinds of remarks that flood social media, often from accounts that claim to be advocates for women's wrestling. Ripley didn't mince words in her response, writing, "You guys are the real reason it's so difficult to be taken seriously as a women's wrestler. If you put as much effort into your own miserable lives as you put into degrading successful women, then maybe you would accomplish something yourself." Her statement was a gut punch, calling out the contradiction of fans who demand better treatment for women in wrestling, while simultaneously undermining their achievements with baseless criticism and personal attacks. To understand why Ripley's comments hit so hard, we need to look at the history of women's wrestling and the long, arduous journey it has taken to reach its current state. For decades, women's wrestling struggled to be seen as legitimate. In the 1980s and early 1990s, promoters made efforts to establish women as credible athletes, capable of competing on the same level as their male counterparts. There were bright spots and names like Wendy Richter and Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa, carried the torch for women's wrestling, showcasing athleticism and skill. But the progress was fragile. A pivotal moment came in the mid-1990s when Alundra Blaze, after jumping from WWE to WCW, infamously dropped the WWE Women's Championship belt in a trash can on live television. The act was a symbolic low point, and WWE responded by dissolving its women's division entirely for a time, leaving female wrestlers without a platform to shine. When WWE did bring back women's wrestling in the late 1990s during the Attitude Era, it was a far cry from the athletic showcase it could have been. Women were often reduced to props, their matches overshadowed by gimmicks designed to titillate rather than impress. Bra and panties matches, pillow fights, mud pit matches, and dance-offs became the norm, turning women's wrestling into a sideshow. For young fans growing up during this era, these segments were awkward at best. Imagine being an 8-year-old watching a suggestive match and quickly changing the channel to avoid getting in trouble with your parents. The message was clear: women's wrestling wasn't to be taken seriously. It was a spectacle meant to pop a rating rather than tell compelling stories or showcase talent. This approach did a disservice not only to the wrestlers but to the fans who wanted to see women treated as equals in the sport. The early 2000s saw incremental improvements as WWE began to rebuild credibility for its women's division. Wrestlers like Trish Stratus, Lita, Molly Holly, Jazz, Victoria, and later Melina, Mickie James, Beth Phoenix, and Michelle McCool worked tirelessly to elevate the division. They delivered hard-hitting matches and compelling storylines, proving that women could be just as captivating as the men. But even then, WWE's commitment was inconsistent. Matches were often given minimal time, sometimes as little as 5 minutes for entrances and the match itself, only to be cut to 3 minutes at the last second. How could anyone tell a meaningful story or get over with the audience under such constraints? Meanwhile, promotions like TNA, now Impact Wrestling, were setting a different standard. They gave their women Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, ODB, The Beautiful People, and others main event slots, lengthy matches, and intricate feuds that rivaled anything the men were doing. The contrast was stark. TNA treated its women as stars, while WWE often seemed to view them as an afterthought. The turning point came with the rise of NXT, WWE's developmental brand, under the creative direction of Triple H. Recognizing the untapped potential of women's wrestling, he made it a priority to build a division that could stand toe-to-toe with the men's. Wrestlers like Emma, Paige, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley were given the opportunity to shine in main event matches, delivering performances that were gritty, athletic, and emotionally resonant. For the first time, women in WWE were allowed to throw punches, a basic move long denied to them due to outdated notions about what was appropriate for female wrestlers. The idea that a punch was too violent for women, in a sport built on choreographed combat, was absurd, but NXT shattered those barriers. These women weren't just competing, they were stealing the show, proving that they could carry a promotion just as well as the men. This revolution in NXT laid the groundwork for what would become known as the women's evolution on WWE's main roster. The reintroduction of the Women's Championship, replacing the much-maligned Divas Championship, marked a new era. Wrestlers like Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Bayley, AJ Lee, and the Bella Twins, among others, were given the platform to showcase their skills. They mixed it up in high-stakes feuds, headline pay-per-views, and proved that women could draw just as much interest as the men. The evolution wasn't just about better matches, it was about changing perceptions. Women were no longer secondary players, they were top stars, capable of carrying the company. Today, we are undeniably in the golden era of women's wrestling. The depth of talent across WWE's brands Raw, SmackDown, and NXT is staggering. Names like Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Liv Morgan, Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, Asuka, Stephanie Vaquer, and Roxanne Perez represent a roster that is arguably as strong as, if not stronger than, the men's division in terms of in-ring ability. These women are versatile, charismatic, and capable of delivering matches that rival anything on the card. From technical masterclasses to hard-hitting brawls, they've shown they can do it all. And it's not just WWE. Promotions like AEW, Impact, and international companies like Stardom have raised the bar, creating a global renaissance for women's wrestling. Yet, despite these strides, the negativity persists. Fans who claim to support women's wrestling often turn on the very performers they say they admire. Social media amplifies this toxicity, with comments that range from petty critiques of a wrestler's appearance or personal life to outright malicious hopes for their failure or injury. This is what Rhea Ripley was addressing in her tweet. The hypocrisy is glaring. How can you claim to champion women's wrestling while simultaneously wishing harm on its stars? Ripley's frustration is shared by many in the industry who have fought for years to be taken seriously, only to face a barrage of hate from the very fans who should be lifting them up. Ripley's message wasn't just a rebuke, it was a call to action. She urged fans to channel their energy into something positive, to focus on their own lives and achievements rather than tearing others down. It's a sentiment that resonates beyond wrestling. The culture of online negativity, where anonymity emboldens cruelty, is a broader societal issue, but it's particularly damaging in a field like women's wrestling, which has had to overcome so much to reach its current heights. Ripley's words are a reminder that fandom should be about celebration, not destruction. Supporting women's wrestling means cheering for their successes, appreciating their hard work, and recognizing the barriers they've broken down. The conversation sparked by Ripley's tweet is bigger than one wrestler or one moment. It's about the legacy of women's wrestling and the responsibility of fans to help it thrive. The progress made, from the days of mud pit matches to headlining WrestleMania, is remarkable, but it's not irreversible. The same fans who demand better opportunities for women need to hold themselves accountable for how they engage with the product. Criticism is fine, but when it crosses into personal attacks or undermines the very progress it claims to support, it becomes counterproductive. Ripley's call-out was a wake-up call. If you want women's wrestling to continue its ascent, start by being a fan who builds up rather than tears down.